Siman tov l'tshuva meula. This is even before we hear the siman tov. There's a good sign of what Rav Kook calls tshuva meula, excellent tshuva. Right? And I heard actually this week that there's three things that we talk about shlema, complete. When we wish people a refuah, they should have complete healing. Even though it's great to have even a person who's suffering, they're sick, lo aleinu, that even if they have a little bit of a healing, so that's already pretty good, but we wish people they should have a complete healing, because that's really what we want. Tshuva shlema, that there's a concept called complete tshuva, right? And then there's also the geula shlema. We want redemption, but we want, we want the whole thing. Right now, already we came back to Eretz Yisrael. There's so many great things, but we're hurting, and so we seek these three things. We seek the shleimut, right? But here Rav Kook says a concept called tshuva meula, excellent tshuva, and he says that I'm going to give you a sign. How can you tell in yourself that your tshuva has been great tshuva, right? That in itself is a huge chiddush Rav Kook in this sefer. In general, Rav Kook many times he describes the spiritual experience. This is the spiritual experience of loving God. This is the feel of fearing God. There's so many different aspects of it. If you look especially in the 4-volume set called Orot Kodesh, Rav Kook, so much of it is these fine nuances of what the soul experiences and what's the emotional experience, what's the intellectual experience, what happens to you when this happens, right? So Rav Kook here is saying a good sign, a sign that you can tell in yourself that there's been excellent tshuva, is the following: korat ruach pnimit, which the way that I would translate that is probably an inner spiritual pleasure. Korat ruach is we find that term in Chazal, and you might remember from Pirkei Avot. In Pirkei Avot, the sages say that that all 1 hour of korat ruach, 1 hour of spiritual pleasure in the world to come, is greater than all of this world. Right? You remember that one from Pirkei Avot? And all the world to come is not equal to 1 hour of tshuva and ma'asim tovim in this world. You guys remember that Mishnah in Pirkei Avot? Just since we said that Mishnah, I have to tell you what my Rav said in the name of his Rav Olbi. When it says that one hour, usually also when the Chazal say 1 hour, they don't necessarily mean 1 hour. 1 moment of pleasure, spiritual pleasure in the world to come is greater than all the pleasure of this world, all of this world. So that doesn't mean if you try to compare all the great pleasures of this world and you pick the top pleasure, so then the 1 hour in the world to come is better than that. No. If you combine all of the pleasures of this world together, and not just each one, this one gets a 7, this one gets an 8, this one gets a 6.5, you put them all together, you get a high number. All the pleasures that have ever taken place in this world throughout all the generations, all of that pleasure together, which is, it's kind of like if you think about infinity, you feel like your brain's gonna, so just 1 hour of the pleasure, the spirituality and the pleasure of the spiritual in the world to come is greater than all of that put together. Which is a way of saying that we have no possibility. We don't have kelim in our current state to be able to understand, to grasp what that pleasure is. It's just in a different world. It's a different league, right? That's why some of the tzaddikim and the Kabbalists said that's dafka why the sages use the term world to come. It's different. It's a different world, because everything that you have in this world, there's no way you could possibly compare it and grasp. So it's just the only way to describe it. It's not however you define world. I don't know, planet or I don't know. It's just something that's totally different. We don't have the kelim to grasp it. Now, Rav Kook says that when you've done tshuva, if you've been spending an hour, gentlemen, in the Beit Midrash, and you're making a cheshbon nefesh, and you're doing tshuva, and you're thinking, how can I be better? It's Elul. I want to fix my tefillah. I want my tefillah to be better. I want my midot to be better. I want my Torah to be sharper. I want to stop wasting time. I want to stop speaking lashon hara. I want to stop talking about these things, and looking at these things, and acting in these ways. How do you feel after an hour of that cheshbon nefesh? I don't know. What do you guys say? There's different experiences. I think there's different experiences. Sometimes you can feel after that, gosh, I'm so far from where I need to be. Right? You can feel a little bit down from all that cheshbon nefesh. Right? I'm not saying not to do cheshbon nefesh, but we have to understand that the process of tshuva, true tshuva me'ula, excellent tshuva, is that you feel spiritual pleasure afterwards. You feel elevated. You feel good. You feel happy afterwards. Listen to what he says. He says, "Korat ruach pnimit," an inner spiritual pleasure. Ve'he'arat hasechel ba'asagot elinot, and your mind is sharpened. Anybody here coffee drinkers? One, two, the whole room. So people, I also don't drink coffee, but I thought I was the only one. They make these chad-pami cups, these throwaway cups that says "Don't talk to me before I've had my coffee" or something like that, right? So there's some people, like, the few times that I've had periods in my life that I'm drinking coffee, like, if before your coffee, if you look at a piece of Gemara, and after the coffee, when you look at a piece of Gemara, it's two different worlds. One time, one of my children was prescribed Ritalin, and so I said, I'm not going to give it to him without. I have to test it myself. I have to see. Don't give something to your child without experiencing it. Well, you guys think that's irresponsible? I don't know. I get in trouble. Put something, an intense chemical in your child's body. I want to know what it does. So I took Ritalin, and I went to go to the base medrash and learn, and I was like the Energizer Bunny, everything was very clear. When your mind has extreme focus, or lahavdil from Ritalin, like to learn a shtickle Torah on Shabbos, or to learn with a chavrusa, right? To learn, sometimes you're in a shir, and then there's a Rav that he elucidates it in such a way that it's like, even if you learned the piece 5 minutes before and you understood something from it, but now it's totally different, right? A cloud gets lifted over your sechel, from over your intellect, and now you're able to see something on such a higher, intense level of clarity. That's what Rav Kook says. You're able to. An experience of tshuva me'ula is that your brain works better. Your understanding is deeper. It's more clear, right? If you learn a piece on, I don't know, in the sukkah. I don't know. I'm just trying to give a bunch of different examples, trying to catch however many experiences maybe some of you guys have had before. If you're learning a piece of Torah together with a group of friends that you love, and you're talking about it, and right, and then afterwards you could look at that same piece like a week later when you're not in the same positive mental state, and it just doesn't. It's not shining to you in the same way, right? So what Rav Kook's saying is that when you've done tshuva, it's givaldik. You're more clean. You're closer to Hashem. You're closer to yourself. You've removed some of the layers of stuff that's covering you up. That feels good. It should feel good. If it doesn't feel good, it's still tshuva. It's when you stand and you did the cheshbon nefesh and you're feeling bad afterwards and not good, that's still tshuva, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So is that supposed to make me feel bad when I do tshuva and I don't feel good? No. Rav Kook is telling you this in order for you to understand that this is what you should be shooting for. And this is a sign for you, right? And keep on working until you've done it in that way. What's lacking in my tshuva that I'm not feeling good afterwards? How come at the end of doing tshuva, I feel lower instead of higher, right? Something's lacking there. What do I do about it? Right? I'll just say from the very beginning as an answer to that question is that one of the major centerpieces, foundation stones of tshuva, is the belief that it works, right? It's not nishtakunt. It's not a great trick to be able to say, look, these are all the things that are wrong in my life and that I've done wrong. Anybody could do that, but to believe that tshuva works, Ribono Shel Olam loves it when I'm doing tshuva. This is a moment of closeness with Hashem. It's kind of hard because I'm picking myself apart on one hand, but on the other hand, this is beautiful. At this moment, I'm close to Hashem. At this moment, Hashem is having tremendous nachas from me, right? And now I've done tshuva. What are the steps of tshuva? I recognize what I've done. I have regret, remorse over it. I speak it out to Hashem. Asiti kach v'kach. These are the things that I did. And I accept upon myself that I'm going to try my hardest not to do it again. Zeu zeh. Finished. You're clean. Ribono Shel Olam's super happy with you. So the Rambam says over there, if you guys look in Hilchot Tshuva, it's very kedai during this month to learn the Rambam's Hilchot Tshuva. And one of the things he says over there he talks about the person's spiritual level before he's done tshuva, and afterwards, now he's beloved and he's close to Hashem and he's cherished, And he uses 6 or 7 different words of closeness, how Hashem is so happy with you. So you have to remember that. More than you have to remember all the details of what you've done and what you need to still fix, right? And then you can understand how a person could come to a feeling of spiritual pleasure afterwards. Birat Hatziyur ve'ezuz HaKodesh shel Taharat Koach HaMedamen. Now, this is something that you might not have expected. Another sign of that he's done excellent tshuva is that he feels a clarity and a strength, a holy strength and purity in his imagination, his koach of imagination, right, of creativity. People who have done tshuva, their creativity is elevated. It's not just elevated, now they're more creative. Their creativity, their imagination is more exacting, it's more precise. It's holy, right? And now he gives a little bit of insight into the koach hamedama, which is the imagination and creativity. Hamabish et havanat elyona hakolelet et kol orchot hachaim kulam, which encloses the exalted understanding. I'll explain this in a second. Hakolelet et kol orchot chaim kulam, the exalted understanding includes in it all the pathways in life. What does that mean? That I'm going to read you a piece. Those of you guys that have the blue book, you look down in note number 6, and in the middle of the third line down, it says Rav Kook is talking about the imagination, the creativity. He says, "V'otat surah hikdosha." Oh, sorry, let me see where it starts here. I'm going to actually start in the middle. On the sentence, it says, "V'chozman shatzura hazot." Start the imagination. Kol shman shatzura hazot mitashteshet והדמיון מצטער על פי חוק שלו בעצמו, בלא השפעת שכל עליו, אז הוא המקור היותר נרפש לכל תקלה ולכל חטא ועוון בחיי היחיד ובחיי הציבור. You have your intellect, and then you have your imagination, and you have the koach of creativity, koach hamedama it's called. When the way that it should work is that your intellect should be influencing and guiding your imagination. If it goes the other way, so he says that's the source of all terrible downfalls and sins, because imagination, your creativity, a person can create all kinds of things. I don't have to tell you the stuff that we have today in the world that's available to everybody without mentioning any names is man's imagination run wild, right? Without any type of guidance. It's like a wild animal, a powerful animal, without anybody steering it, without anybody guiding it, right? But if a person's intellect is influencing their imagination, their creativity, so then they create, how's Mashiach going to clean things up around here, right?
We'll see.
We'll see. That's right. We have no idea how he's going to do this, right? I was sat a year ago sitting with Rav Micha Tversky, the Horner Stipler Rebbe in Milwaukee, and had a long conversation with him, and we were talking about Mashiach. We were talking about the end of days, and we were talking about how crazy things have gotten. And I was asking him, he's about 90 years old, 85 years old maybe, and I was asking him, when he was young, did the world seem so out of control and crazy? And he said, no, not at all. And he said there was crazy events that would happen, but the world seemed like there was a little bit more under control. There was much more clarity for what red lines are in the world. Today, he said there are no lines, any color, for sure not red lines. And then he said, and he kind of like, a lot of times, Rav Micha Tversky is a beautiful person. Sometimes I've seen him in Shir. Someone will ask him a question, and he'll just get up and walk away for like 5 minutes and put his head down. You think he's taking a shluff, but he's thinking about it. And then he comes back and he gives you this long, beautiful, well thought out answer, right? And so anyway, we're in the middle of that conversation. All of a sudden, he goes like this for about like 2 or 3 minutes, and then he says, "I just don't see how anybody except Mashiach can clean up all this mess. Like he was like trying to think like, what's the solution? How can we? Yeah, that's what I imagine he was thinking about. He was like, I just don't see any other way, like. But we have no idea how Mashiach's going to do it. There's a sefer, one of my favorite smarms called Chuas Chen, one of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov. His name is Rav Gedalia Milinitz. Very, very special sefer. And one of the things that he says over there is that one of the ways that Mashiach is going to bring the redemption is that he's going to bring the entire world to do tshuva. But how are you going to? There's been prophets. There's been all kinds of people who are people try to do tshuva. We can if we all devote ourselves to making YouTube shiurim right now. Do tshuva. Front page ad in the New York Times. All the major newspapers do tshuva, and then the Gula will happen. At least try it. Give it a shot. No, it's not helping. Go ahead.
I have one idea is that I watch a lot of YouTube videos of rabbis and people explaining Judaism to the world, and I haven't seen a good one that explains who Hashem is, how that He enlivens the world at every moment. There's everything that happens to you is Hashem creating a world for you and speaking to you. I mean, people there's rabbis that touch on it, but it's not explained so well. If somebody could really use this. If Mashiach comes in and is able to say this clearly and even prove it to the world, that's I think would change the whole conception of the world, and you wouldn't have to fight all these little all the big issues that are in the world. You just change the perspective, right?
Yeah, and then how's he going to get to everybody? How's he going to get everybody off of TikTok and watching his shiur, or is he going to go on how's he going to get to the Africans, in the villages that don't have? Maybe today everybody. Yeah. Everybody's got it. Okay, I'm annoyed. All right, but the point. Anyway, Chuas Chen over there says, it says that how's he going to bring everybody to do tshuva? He's not going to tell them, "You wayward sons, look how far you've gone." He's not gonna do any type of torah. He's going to show each. I don't know how he's going to do this. How many? We have 8 billion. How many people are in the world? He's going to show each one of them how special and beautiful they are, and they're going to see their own the depth and the beauty of their own soul. And from that place, everybody's going to do tshuva, wild tshuva. The whole thing's going to change, right? How's he going to do that? I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. The Rambam says, we don't know how these things are going to happen, but the reason why I'm stressing this is he's got to have such a creative plan. There's a lot of creative and smart people in the world, and we haven't come up with a plan yet. We haven't done it, and that's why I imagine Micha would say, I just, using all of my chokhmah and all of my creativity and my imagination, I just can't do it. Mashiach's going to have this imagination and this koch of creativity, which is way beyond anything. We didn't think about it. We never thought about that. The whole world's going to say we never thought about it, right? That's pretty unbelievable. Where does he get that depth of creativity? It's definitely from this place of tshuva, right? The purity of the person's soul, the purity of his actions, the depth and the excellentness of his tshuva, right? Creates a situation in his soul where he has clarity. His clarity has spiritual pleasure, and his imagination, his creativity is beyond anything that he had access to before that, right? Which is an amazing thing. You take an IQ test. I don't know I don't know anything about the IQ test. I don't know how they measure it or whatever. But if you just take that worldview that there's such a thing called an IQ, an IQ score. This is what my brain is capable of, not more, right? That just doesn't register in our books, right? Your brain, I know that they say we use 12% of our brains or something. I don't know what they used to say something like that. What?
It's wrong. You can train your brain. It's
exactly. What's the other 88% there for? We don't know. It's like the appendix. Take it out.
That statement is not true. Your whole brain works all the time.
Huh?
You maybe don't see it. For your breathing or your seeing, you don't register as something that's thinking.
Right. But think about the concept today what they call brain fog. Right? You guys anybody experienced that before? That's kind of like the pre-coffee state for coffee drinkers.
Disoriented.
Yeah, you're disoriented. You're not thinking as sharp. For me, I can tell for me personally, I can tell exactly what level of clarity I'm on. Dafka when I learn Talmud Bavli, when I'm learning Gemara, because if I'm a little bit tired or I'm not 100% focused, I just don't get it. I can't understand what's written over there. And if I'm getting it, so then I know that I'm in a sharp state at that moment, right? So I haven't found anything for me. Maybe you guys have something else. I don't know. Doing other things that you can sense it, but there's different levels of clarity and of strength and of functionality in your brain and in your soul, right? And part of it, of course, has to do with eating your vegetables and taking your vitamins, but also part of it has to do with the tshuva. Tshuva is what elevates it, right? So since we haven't done tshuva shlema the whole world, and therefore we haven't received the geula shlema, right? When Mashiach comes, he's gonna unveil and reveal a deeper level of reality that's already here. We're not noticing it. We don't have access to it, right? Because like we said, like the Tshuva Chen, how's he going to bring you to tshuva? He's going to show you who you really are. You get a little taste of it. Givaldik. What am I doing? Wasting my time? Whatever it is. Speaking Lashon Hara, playing video games, and whatever it is that I'm wasting my time with. I've got so much more to me, right? Okay, that was base. Any questions, comments, complaints before we go on to Gimel?
There's something I learned. I don't know if you probably know Rabbi Kessin.
Sure, yeah. Very special.
He really goes into Ramchal and he talks about Micha ben Yosef a lot. He says, and so like to answer not exactly what he's going to do to bring people to tshuva, but why he has the power to do it is because he like takes on the suffering of the entire world. Like he has to do a tshuva, not from his own faults, but he has to do a tshuva of the negative forces of the world. So when he does this complete tshuva, he'll know like. Anybody that comes to him with a problem, he's already done it. He's already done the tshuva. He knows the answer.
Right. Yeah, beautiful. You're saying that's Yishich ben Yosef.
Ben Yosef.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because he.
Ramchal really. Yeah.
Ben Yosef is like the one that constantly suffers. Hashem takes away his dots, and he has many challenges. Right. They said that. Yeah. There's a lot to say about that. It's a beautiful and deep point. Okay, now we're on Bet Chad. And the reason why it's Achad and Bet Shtayim, they're connected, these two pieces. So we'll do them as one. כששבים בתשובה שלמה, אפשר אחר כך לחשוב מחשבות ארוכות. This is so connected to our generation. Like I don't know how Rav Kook thought about this like 100 years ago, but he says when a person does complete tshuva, he's able afterwards to think long thoughts. What are long thoughts? I'll tell you experience that I had here in Mechon Meir. And that the attention span of modern man has become more and more short over the last number of years. I remember I used to give a shiur at 8:30 at night. It's still a perm shiur, 8:30 at night shiur. And I would teach one subject, and we would go for usually until 10:30. The guys were focused, and we were all together, and we were learning. It was beautiful. And after a number of years of doing that, I noticed I was losing the guys. So I went into Rav Lissman, and I said, I have to give my resignation, Rabbi. I think I've become, I don't know, maybe I'm not connecting with the guys anymore. I'm teaching, and everybody's, and Rav Frankenthal walked in right then. I'll tell you the story. Frankenthal said, no, Micha, it doesn't have to do with you. It's because the attention spans have changed over the last couple of years. You're doing one subject for an hour and a half, 2 hours. You can't expect. Break it up into various subjects. So I did it, and that changed everything. Right? So I myself, I see myself, our ability to focus, however we want to, whatever we want to ascribe it to, whether it's media, who knows what it was, right? But 100 years ago, there was no such thing as attention deficit disorder, right? Maybe there was, nobody talked about it, nobody knew about it, right? But it's definitely not what it is today. And there's something that has changed. I've even noticed it in my short lifetime. That not just in that. That's just one example of a story that I noticed it very clearly. But it's different. It's different. The world is different. So Rav Kook says there's something about the level of our spirituality that affects our ability to think long thoughts. What does that mean? To hold on to a line of thinking.
right? Have you guys experienced, if you, for those that have started to learn Gemara, that sometimes you just get so lost, like this one was saying this and this one's saying this, and now it seems like you're on like 5 different subjects, right? 2 pages in the Gemara, 2 daf, and then it comes back to that. Wait a minute, I thought we finished talking about that like a week ago, right? If in the deeper, not the deeper, more Kabbalistic svarim, the deeper pilpul svarim, and the Rishonim and the Achronim and the Gemara, they have these unbelievably long, connected thinking patterns that they're able to hold clarity in a sugya, right? Am I making sense? You guys are following me? And they're able to hold clarity, and we're like, we gave up, like we got tired, we lost stamina. What gives them the ability to think so clearly, right? And if you take it back even more, not just in this one sugya, right? Big Talmidei Chachamim, the whole Shas, the whole Gemara is open before them. So it's like it's all one sugya. So like they're comparing, Tosfos, the difference between Rashi is just explaining what's on the Gemara on this actual page, and Tosfos a lot of times is comparing what's on this page to other pages or to other Masechtot, right? So they had a system how they did that. But the point is that that's an extremely long thought. This can't be true because we have a rule over in Masechet Yavamot that says like this, even though it's a different case, but you see it's the same principle. And really that one is similar to this case that's in Masechet Kedushin. And that, right? Unbelievable comparisons. How are you supposed to be able to hold on to all that thinking? I'm not saying that everybody has to be a big mefalpel and Gemara and everything. Not everybody is built for that. But Rav Kook is saying that when a person does Tshuva Shlema, it allows him to think long thoughts. The concept of a long thought, and what I understand Rav Kook is saying here, is context, right? That I heard once from Rav Shmuel Shapira. They said that the difference between a child and an adult is that a child, every moment is separate. One moment doesn't have to have necessarily anything to do with another moment. So 2 kids are hitting each other and fighting, and they don't want to be friends. They say, he's not my friend. And then literally 1 second later, they're both best friends, and they forgot about it. They said the most insulting thing that could ever be said, and they didn't even have to apologize. They're already on to the next thing. A kid is crying, and then you give them something to help them, and then they're smiling, even though they still have warm tears on their cheeks, right? They're able to flip, and there's no accountability also from one moment to the next in a child, right? Because each moment is totally separate. A godless greatness is that everything is connected and everything's in one context, and therefore, something that's unique to Torah Jews is that the way that I tie my shoes is important. What does that have to do with anything with spirituality? The way that I talk to my people, the way that the things that I don't say, the way that I carry myself, the way that I walk, right? The way that I eat. I think I told you guys once my brother went to a Rav for Shabbos, and I said, how was it? And he said, the Rav's so holy. I said, what did you see? What was it that you saw? He said that his little boy, his son, who's now a married man, but he was taking the cups off the table and putting them on the ground. And the Rav was like, he was picking them up and putting them back on the table. Okay, so what did you see? And he said, no, you should have seen the way he did it. Right? The way he did it. Sometimes you see holy people, just watching them watching the way that they turn their head. There are certain tzaddikim that they said that they wouldn't even move their eyes to the right or left unless they were 100% sure that it was Hashem's desire that they should look at this or not look at this. Right? We can't even imagine living on that kind of level of everything is in the same context of, right? So that's godless. A long thought that Rav Kook is saying is that my behavior right now is also connected to my behavior in an hour from now, and right, he's able to have he's more expansive. That's the word. And as long as his tshuva is not really wholesome to that degree, I mean, it doesn't mean his tshuva is bad. Chas v'shalom. It means as long, but his tshuva is kind of like mefukpeket. I think Rav Kook means here it's like a, what do you call it, staccato. It's like a, it's in breaks. It's not consistent. Hamachshavot haruchaniyot hinan rak begeder ratzov v'shov. So his spiritual thoughts come like in waves. They come and then they're fleeting more. They come and then they go. Right now he's super spiritual and super motivated and super inspired, and then 10 minutes later, totally out, right? And I know that I've felt that in myself many, many times, right? It's a very common experience. Rav Kook saying this is where it comes from. Beharot ktanot umufsakot. It comes in waves, short blasts of short blasts of light, of inspiration, is really what it says. And it goes on, he says, Misha's in Bet time, Bet 2, he says, Misha zochel tshuva me'ahava zochel le'olam aroch. And someone who does tshuva from a place of love, which of course we've said, like the Rambam says, and the Gemara says, it's the highest level of tshuva, from a place of love. I'm doing this because I love you, Hashem, not from fear. Fear is great, it's also good, but the highest level, the level that we aspire to, is a relationship of love between us and Hashem. And a person does tshuva from that place, so he merits a world that is long, that it's expansive. And his thoughts become elongated and expanded and filled with all types of exalted things. Right? Sounds pretty fun, right? I don't know. Doesn't that sound great? No? Expansive, gefilt thought. Sounds good to me. Okay. Gimel. Kol chet umonea et yishuv hadat hanidrash leherat hazeh olam. Now, and here the Rav Kook really goes back into what the title of the chapter is, which is about learning Torah, the connection between Torah and tshuva. And specifically, the focus really in the chapter is learning the deeper parts of Torah. Even though, like when you're learning a halacha, it's the deepest in the world, but you don't always feel the depth of it, right? When you learn halacha, it doesn't usually give you tremendous inspiration, right? It gives you clarity, right? But the inspiration and the depth comes from the deeper parts of the Torah. So he says, Kol chet monea et yishuv hadat hanidrash leharat hazeh olam. For a person to be able to understand the deeper parts of the Torah, you remember the story I told last week with my Rav when he invited me to that shiur, not because he wanted me to understand, because he wanted me to learn how to receive, right? So, and that's what Rav Kook is saying here. A person needs tremendous yishuv dat, tremendous peace of mind and focus to be able to learn the deeper parts of Torah. The deeper parts of Torah are very intense, and if it's kind of like lahavdil. I don't know if they still have these, but when I was a kid, I remember they used to have these. They came out with these pictures that it looked like just like this pattern, but if you stared at it in such a way, so then then an image would come out.
Yeah, they have
Magic Eye.
Facebook.
Magic Eye. Right. You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Ivan's got a book in his room. He's got one in Hebrew.
Okay. So how are you able to see the image?
Cross your eyes or blur them.
But if you have to focus in a certain way.
Yeah, I have to focus in one spot.
So I was never zoicha. I was never zoicha to find the image.
And then eventually, it's the picture.
Right. So I believe it. I don't think that you guys are making it up. I believe that there's a real image there, but I was never zoicha because I wasn't able to do it. But and people tried. They said, look at one spot, focus. They said, don't focus. Just let yourself look at it without focusing on anything, and then it comes out, right?
Well,
I don't know how it works.
You look at it first that way, and then if you see something.
Shlomo, I'm a lost cause. We did this for hours back in the 80s.
And from that piece, it grows.
Be'ez Hashem, I believe you. I just, I don't know if I'm bezoich in this lifetime to. But
slightly cross your eyes.
That's it. I've heard all the eitzes. But the point is that this is not the way that you usually look at something. You need to kind of let go of your normal way of looking at things, your regular way of looking at it, in order to be able to see something else, right? So too, if in therapy, that so many times a person is stuck. Most people come to therapy because they're stuck. Something's stuck in their life. It's stuck and it hurts, right? And I can't seem to look at it a little bit differently in order to see a way out, right? So part of therapy is kind of softening. It's tools. Part of it is softening up your mental state, the way you're looking at it, or touching a different plane. Maybe your mind is getting in your way. A lot of times in therapy, with men especially, men are very much up here, and women a lot of times are very much down here in their hearts, and sometimes a person goes to their mind because the heart, it's just too intense, or it's scary, or it's too vulnerable, or they're not used to it, they're not comfortable there. And part of therapy is like, wait a minute, I don't want to hear the answer from here, I want it from down here, right? It's a totally different plane. It's a different plane of existence, right? A spiritual experience, a feeling of dvekus, of connection with God, right? It's not here. I mean, it can be here on some level. This can be activated, right? But it's here, and it's even deeper than here. It's deeper. It can be even deeper than the emotions, right? It's a different. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a different mechanism inside of you that is able to grasp this. So too with the Razei Olam, with the secrets of the world, the deeper parts of Torah. It's not just learning a body of information. That's not what it is, right? If it is that, oy vavoy, it's a dangerous thing. A person shouldn't be learning Kabbalah and the deeper parts of Torah, and I was once at a Shabbos table, and people were going around introducing themselves, and a person there said, I'm finishing up my PhD. Oh, you're a doctor. Doctor of what? Of Hasidus. Right? I almost got up and walked away from the table. Like not really. I would never do that and offend a person. I'm saying, like, I don't know. She got her PhD in Hasidic thought. I don't know what it is, but like, if you can write a dissertation about it, I don't know. There's something that Kabbalah can't be. That's not the purpose of it.
Hasidus has different parts of it. You can write like about the person, about the Rabbi.
For sure. And I'm not trying to pick on this person and all the academic parts. I'm not trying to pick on it.
No, I'm just like also like interested in
Right. Yeah. No, for sure. And there's millions of aspects. But you understand what I'm saying? Like the function of those Rebbe's, that what they were trying to bring in the world was for you to be connected in a totally different plane, right? To be able to cross your eyes, uncross your eyes, blur it, not look at it, in order the image will stick out, and you'll see, right? The Rebbe's coming and saying, "This is Hashem Elokei Yisrael," and the Yid says, "I for sure believe in God." So I know you believe in God, right? But what the famous story about the Kedushas Levi. Kedushas Levi, his father-in-law was a misnagid, who was in opposition to Chassidus, and this is in the early generations. And he went to Mezrich. I can't remember where. I think he went to Rav Shmelkim in Nikolsburg, and he learned Chassidus. So when he came back, and the Kedushas Levi, Rav Levi Yitzchak from Berdichev, was a huge gaon, and he was slated to be one of the greatest of the generation. And so his father-in-law was really let down, really upset by this, and he kind of said to him, like in a place of like pain, and also a place of a little bit of zilzul. How do you say zilzul? Shaming a little bit. No, and what did you learn over there? Well, like what did they teach you over there? And he said, I learned that there's a God. There's a God in heaven and earth. So he said, no, every child and he called in. I think he called in the non-Jewish maid that worked there, and he said, do you believe that is there a God in the world? She said, of course there's a God. So he said, look, so what, you had to go to Shmelkim in Nikolsburg to learn this? And he said, no, there's a very big difference. He said, a lot of people say that and they believe that, but I know it now. Right? That's what the tzaddikim are doing. This is Hashem Elokei Yisrael. Yeah, I know. And no. Right here. Right? To help you meet and have the real relationship with Hashem. A different part of you needs to be engaged here. It's not your eyes, it's not your ears, it's not your nose, it's all of you, and more and none and every, right? So that's what Rav Kook is saying. Therefore, chet, a sin, prevents a person from being able to really access those parts of himself, right? When we talk about Kabbalah, how dangerous it is to learn Kabbalah if a person is not purifying themselves, right? How did Shabtai Tzvi Mach Shemo V'Zichro, how did he get to the place that he got to? Right?
Or pigs and orgies.
Oh yeah, but how did he fall into all that muck? He fell into the worst places, the worst kinds of places. The Frankists, a lot of the different, they fell into it. Dafka, our Masorah is that our tradition is that they fell into it from this place of they were learning the deeper parts of Torah without purification of themselves before. I'm talking about even simply going to the mikvah, right? But more than that, purifying themselves in a level of that it's real, true purification, and then when it's coming in that way, things get, it's like when the nuclear secrets get into the wrong hands. We know about that in the world, right? We're scared about that in the world. That's what it is. So therefore, HaTeshuva hi potachat pitche bina. Tshuva therefore opens up. He says tshuva, which is the opposite of that chet, which blocks his ability to have the yishuv dat, to learn the deeper parts of Torah and understand it. Tshuva opens up the gates of bina, of understanding. Kashem shehi ba al yedei bina, just like it comes from bina, right? Bina is a deeper understanding. You guys understand? Bina means to expand, to contemplate, to think about and understand deeper things, right? Deeper things on any level doesn't mean secrets of Torah, right? Bina is also when you're trying to figure out a math problem and you can't figure it out, and you sit there and you take it slow and you concentrate and you focus and you contemplate this, right? Trying to figure something out with your finances, trying to figure something out with your shalom bayis, trying to figure, right? All that is Bina. Tshuva opens up the gates of Bina. Tshuva also comes from Bina, meaning when Rav Kook said, one feeds the other. When I start to contemplate that life is not permanent here on this earth, there must be a reason, right? I think there's a sentence that Einstein said towards the end of his life, that I'm finding it harder and harder. The more that I learn and discover, I'm finding it harder and harder to believe that there's not a creator of all this, or something like that. I don't remember the exact sentence, but that was the gist of it, right? The more you think about it, the more, and then you contemplate, it brings a person to tshuva eventually. I have to be a better person. I got to change something about myself. I have to make sure that my life is worthwhile, right? But so too, my ability to have understanding comes from tshuva. Tshuva opens up my gates of understanding. It expands my mind to be able to see things that I wasn't able to see anymore. That's why, back to therapy for a second, when I consider when I'm doing therapy with people and we're expanding them, this is a moment of tshuva. It's a very sacred and holy moment when a person is working on themselves and expanding. It's a level of tshuva, right? And it opens up gates of understanding that they didn't have before. Once those are opened up, so the sky's the limit. Depending on your level of tshuva, that's how much your bina is expanded, right? And how much your bina is expanded. So now you can grasp things that were there, like we said before, but you didn't see them before, right? It was right here. I didn't see it. I didn't understand it. How is it possible that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai came, and he was the student of Rabbi Akiva, and right? And you trace it back, and yet Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, it says in the Zohar, he revealed things. In the introduction of the Zohar, it says he revealed things that were never revealed before in the world. Not even Shlomo HaMelech, who we call the wisest of all men, had access to the secrets that Rabbi Shimon was given access to. How is that possible? How is it possible to understand that? Right? This is the secret to it. It wasn't because Rabbi Shimon, his IQ was on the higher level, and he blew up the charts of IQ. Right? Shlomo was Chacham Mikol Adam. He was Chacham Mikol Adam. Rabbi Shimon, it wasn't because of Chochmah necessarily, because of an inbuilt, capability. It came from this place of tshuva, from this place of purity, and the gates of bina were opened up, and then a person's able to reveal things, just like Mashiach is going to do eventually, B'ezrat Hashem today, to reveal things that were already there, but nobody saw it at all, right?
So you're saying because Rabbi Shimon was on a lower level is why he was able to reveal the secrets, because he was on the level of bina, whereas Shlomo was getting it right up close to the source.
Right. You could look at it like that. You could look like I'm looking more in a more general sense, but where he drew his secrets from were higher from where Shlomo Melech drew his secrets from. Right. Like it's the actual language of the Gemara is that all the Chachamim before were megamgem in this chokhmah. It actually does call it chokhmah. Right. I was saying more that Shlomo Melech was like he was an inbuilt, so to speak, chokhmah. Right, but it says that all of them were megamgem, that they were working around it. They were trying to make sense of it. But Rabbi Shimon brought it down in a clear way that had never been revealed. And it says that therefore it doesn't say that he discovered things new. It says that he was given permission to reveal things that no one had ever been given permission to reveal, right? And in the Zohar it says unbelievable things about how that happened and Rabbi Shimon's level that he reached. And then you take it years later, and the Arizal came. Think about the Arizal, God. How much do we know about the Ariya Kadosh? The Ariya Kadosh lived in Egypt. He was born in Yerushalayim. You can go to the house that he was born in today. Then they went down to Egypt, and he came back to Israel for like the last year and a half of his life. That year and a half, about a year of it, he was teaching and revealing secrets. 1 year, maybe a year and a half, he was teaching. They wrote down, the students wrote down, there's nobody that's choloc on the Arizal. There's nobody. The whole Jewish world, how many people met him in his lifetime? How many students did he have? He had a group of students, but he was the one that wrote down. Right. The other students also wrote down, and some of that's included in the writings. But the point is that he have a person. He passed away at what? How old was he? 36, 38 years old.
37,
right.
39 maybe.
The man didn't reach 40 years old. Right? In the whole world, the whole Jewish world accepts. Right? He didn't write anything. I mean, he wrote some halachic things, but all of his teachings, like, were only made available like 2 generations after him, right? And accepted universally by everybody. Changed the face of halacha in many places. Changed the place of the way that we learn Zohar legamre, entirely. How is that possible? Somebody you would expect in the Jewish world, at least, somebody would stand up and say, "Come on."
Even the Reformed Jews do a couple of Shabbats.
Right. Here's this younger man. He's a young man. Okay, so he had some chidushim. Who says that I have to accept all those chidushim? Nobody talks like that. I remember when I learned the history, I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, how did this happen? Usually with Jewish, rabbis, they argue down to the bone, And here, universal acceptance. He's written all the halachic svarim quote him. It's pretty unbelievable if you think about it. How did that happen? Right? That the point is, and we'll finish on this for today. We didn't get to the long piece, but is that when somehow he was able to reach this level of purity in his service of Hashem and his tshuva to such a deep level that he had an expanded bina, and he was able to understand things. He was giving over the same Zohar that all the other masters were giving over before him. So why all of a sudden was his understanding of it accepted? Because it made sense. It made sense in the most beautiful and perfect way that nothing else could possibly make sense. And now we understand it. How was he given access to it? That's the point, right? So tshuva opens up this level of bina. You guys know the Arizal, before he came to Israel, he lived in Egypt, and he would spend Shabbos with his wife, and then he would go, and he had a little shack on the river over there, on the Nile or whatever, somewhere on the river, and he would spend there the whole week learning and fasting, and learning Torah with Eliyahu and Navi. And then we come back for Shabbos, right? And he didn't teach anybody when he was in Egypt. That's just what he was doing, right? So when he was learning from Eliyahu Navi, the Chida says something amazing. This is mamash unbelievable. It's not really our subject, but just as we're talking about the Arizal, we have to mention it. He says, how was the Arizal given access to such understanding that that there was nothing like it before? He says that the sages of the Talmud, of the Mishnah, before that, you guys know we had the red heifer. So if a person had tumat amet, if they had impurity, so you have to get spritzed with the water and the ashes of the red heifer. So it wasn't just like this ceremonial thing that okay, now I'm pure, I guess. Like they spritz water on me, I guess I'm pure now, right? It wasn't just a ceremonial thing and a technical thing. It opened something up in a person. Today we don't know, because all of us b'chezkat tamei met, and so we just live in this reality. So we don't know what that expanded type of pure reality feels like. But it would change a person entirely. Their levels of clarity and spiritual clarity were totally different when they were purified. And it says that the Chidah says that they, after the destruction of the second temple, the sages took with them the remaining ashes of the red heifer, and when the students would reach the high enough level, that the sages would spritz them, and that would enable them to reach even higher levels in their scholarship and their depth and their spiritual depth, and that's why they were on such a high level. You guys know that we have some sources that say that any name of a Tana that's mentioned in the Mishnah and the Gemara, that if their name was mentioned, that they were able to revive the dead. Right? These are the levels that these people were on. They're on levels that we can't even imagine. But anyway, all of a sudden we see a very drastic drop of their levels after the Amuraim, after the closing of the Gemara. And so the Chidah explains. He says because that's when they ran out of the that's the reason why there was that drop, is because they ran out of the Efer from the Paraduma, from the red heifer, and they didn't have the ability to reach those levels of clarity anymore. But the Arizal, says the Chidah, the Arizal, since he reached such high levels of tshuva and purity in himself, Eliyahu Navi spritzed him actually with the Efer of the Paraduma, and that's why he was able to, all of a sudden, it was like a tremendous expansion of clarity that nobody could imagine, right? And that's why it was just totally universally accepted. So on our level, just to conclude for the day, on our level, Be'ezrat Hashem, we take these lessons and understand that, we think that, okay, that's the Arizal, that's the Chidah, that's the Amurai, that's not me. I'm still trying to work on not saying Lashon Hara. I'm still trying to work on like having a little bit of kavanah when I daven. I'm working on these little things to try to be just a basic kosher yid, right? But I have to understand that those levels of tshuva, each one where we are, right, is unbelievably high, unbelievably precious in Hashem's eyes. And matter of fact, since we went into the Arizal a little bit today, we'll say that the famous one of the most famous sayings of the Arizal is that Rav Hyman Vital said he heard his Rabbi say. He says that in our generation, even when a person gives a krechs, an anachai, I wish I could be better, but I'm struggling, right? He gives a krechs. He said it's worth many mitzvot of the people of the previous generations, because there's so much more cover up now, right? And so if a person has a little bit of a rotzon, even though he's not able to fulfill it, so it's worth many mitzvot of previous generations. That's the Rav Chaim Vital said 500 years ago. What can we say about today? A million times over. It's so much more precious. So here I am working on my lashon hara, working on my davening, working on my behavior, my shmirat einayim, my shmirat peh. I'm working on my mitzvot, right? Oh, who's paying attention to me? Ribbon Shalom is paying attention to you, and it's extremely precious in His eyes. And that's going to expand our bina, and that's we're going to get ourselves ready, B'ezrat Hashem, for once Mashiach Tzidkenu is going to come any minute, and just tear the whole thing open, and we'll, B'ezrat Hashem, be able to do the tshuva from that place.
Amen.